Okay. Good morning, everyone. First of all, I would thank everyone who has joined, including the HODs of all the departments, the faculty, and the chief guest, and of course, my dear students. Um, First of all, this topic, when I asked Ms. Namratha to come and talk, remembered our professor doing psychoanalysis. I don't know if you remember doing psychoanalysis for our PhD class. I think it was Kate Chopin's, a study of an hour. Yeah. So it was, I think it was just like when I was also reading on psychoanalysis, just going back to his notes, just referring to what he just explained. And for some of you, this might look a little difficult. The term itself might look difficult, but that's the whole point of this lecture. We have to understand first what the concept is, and then, of course, relate it to the play. I thank I thank everyone for joining us again, and please give um, the guest your undivided attention. I would like Shabana ma'am, Assistant Professor, Department of English, to introduce the guest.
Good morning, everybody. It's a moment of extreme pleasure to introduce our young and intelligent speaker, Mrs. Namrata Mohan, Assistant Professor of English at NMKRV Degree College for Women. Ms. Namrata Mohan had worked as English faculty at Jain Public School from July 2020 to August 21. She has also worked as assistant professor of English at Jain University from January to August 2021. She was a pedagogy consultant at the Suvidya Foundation from June 2020 to August 2020. She has completed her BA in English from Meenakshi College for Women, Chennai. First class batch 2015-18. Ms. Namrata Mohan has completed her masters from Jain University, Bangalore, and she was a gold medalist of batch 2018-20. Madam is also pursuing PhD from Jain University, Bangalore on the topic Traversing the Boundaries of Race in American Novels, a study of the mixed race protagonist in select novels. Madam has published a paper titled Power Politics in Indigenous Tribes, a study of Mahashweta Devi's Rudali. She has presented a paper titled Giving Voice to the Voiceless, a study of Jean-Rhys-wide Sargasso Sea. She has also attended a training workshop on extraction and use of National Sample Survey data by Jain. I'm very sure Madam is going to inspire you all in today's session. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Shabana ma'am. And you can go ahead.
Thank you, David. Thank you, Shabana ma'am, for having given me such a warm welcome. And good morning to all of you present here. And thank you so much for being a part of this session and sparing some of your time to attend this session. So, as said by David, I will be focusing on the psychoanalytical approach to a specific text. And people usually feel that anything related to the brain or psychology is something very complicated. But no, actually, it is not. It's a very simple thing because we undergo that every second, every minute. So I'm sure you will be able to relate things to yourself as well throughout the lecture. And a very kind request to all the students Please don't waste time taking screenshots and writing things during the lecture. I will definitely share the PPT with you so you can focus on listening to what your topic is about. Okay, so I'll just begin. I'll share my screen.
You're muted, Namrata.
Yeah. Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I hope my screen is visible.
Yeah.
Okay. So, Suppressed Desire is a very short play, basically a two-act play by George Graham Cook and Susan Glaspell. And the very thing is about a Freudian comedy. So, talking about the outline of the session, I will be focusing on the following things. First, basically the introduction to theories, followed by Freud and his theories, and then we'll come to the summary of the text, followed by the analysis and the psychoanalytical approach to the text. Now, what do you mean by theories? Okay, there are different theories, and we first need to know what a theory is. So, when we define a theory, we can say that it is a system of ideas that intend to explain something. So, when you explain something using certain ideas, so you can call that a theory. It can also be addressed as idea used to account for a situation or justify a course of action. When you use a specific theory to justify something specific, that can also be called a theory. Carefully thought out explanation. Now, there's a difference between using a theory and just talking about something. A theory is a specific approach to something, whereas when you talk, you can talk about different things. And it is constructed using a method. There is a specific way in which a theory is formulated, and there is a specific way in which you are expected to use a theory to a text. Now, coming to what is literary theory. It is a body of idea and method we use in the practical reading of literature. For example, let's say all of you take the same text, but then the way you see the text, the way you analyze the text personally will be different from the way I analyze the text, right? So it is basically nothing but ideas that you use to analyze a text when you are reading it. And when we talk about literary theory, it does not talk about the meaning of the literature, but it is about the theories that reveal what literature means. Okay, again, it is talking about multiple interpretations. A text has multiple interpretations and not one interpretation, all owing to the different theories that we have. And literary theory, tools by which we attempt to understand literature. So you need a certain way, you need certain methods and approaches to understand literature. So literary theory talks about that. Okay, so once you have chosen a text, you unconsciously employ a theory. Maybe you are not aware of what the theory is called, but you are actually employing a theory because based on your understanding, you analyze it in a specific way. The way you analyze it, you are actually using a theory. So, how do we choose a theory? When you read a text thoroughly, you help understand what words have been repeated again, what are the ideas that the text is trying to convey. Then you see certain keywords here and there that draw a link throughout the text. Then when you read further, you're able to analyze different themes, you're able to recognize the central idea or ideas, and then accordingly, you apply a you apply a theory to the text, and then when you apply the theory, and if it is a long analysis that you do, it can also become a research paper. So we can say that one text can have different theories that can be used. Now, coming to the psychoanalysis and psychoanalytical theory, this is the theory that we will be applying to this specific two-act play that has been described in your syllabus. Okay, so the first thing we all need to know about this is Sigmund Freud. Freud is the person who is associated with psychoanalysis and psychoanalytical criticism, and he is a late 19th and early 20th century neurologist who is widely known as the father of modern psychology. And he basically speaks about the process of psychoanalysis, and he also gave importance to the theory of unconsciousness, that is, how your unconscious mind functions. And he's the first one to draw a parallel, draw a connection between a literary text and something like psychology. So when the concepts of psychology, that is, concepts associated to how the brain functions, is connected to a literary text, that is, any story, any novel, any play that you read, that was later called psychoanalysis or psychoanalytical theory, because you are applying that theory to a text. So Freud's book, Interpretation of Dreams, is a very powerful book for you to understand this two-act play in a very deeper sense, because he talks about the interpretations of his own dream and also all the patients who came to him, and it's about their dream also. So coming to what is psychoanalysis, again, it emphasized mostly on the importance of a human's unconscious mind, and it is a set of theories and therapeutic techniques, and they deal with the unconscious mind. So psychoanalysis mostly revolves around your unconscious mind, what goes on in your mind without your knowledge. And many people call it a controversial discipline, because how am I to interpret what is going on in your mind correctly, right? So this is actually a controversial discipline, and I think it will always be, because everyone has a different approach to everything. Okay, so psychoanalytical concepts are also widely used outside the therapeutic arena, in such as psychoanalytical literary criticism, which we will be employing to the text suppressed desires. And we also use the concept of psychoanalysis to films, fairy tales, etc. Basically, using psychology in literature is the most important area where psychoanalysis is used outside the therapeutic arena. So, coming to what is psychoanalytical approach and theory in literature, primary assumption of Freudian theory is about the unconscious mind governing the behavior to a greater degree than people suspect. In the sense, you actually do not know the power of your subconscious or your unconscious mind. You only know things about your conscious mind. So when you are sleeping, when you are dreaming, a lot of things are going on in your unconscious and subconscious mind that you are unaware of. So Freudian theory focused on that specific idea of how great your unconscious mind is in governing you, but you are not actually aware of it. Yes, so when you read a text, they are using psychoanalysis to interpret the text. Right. So dreams are a very important way in which the power of your unconscious and subconscious mind works. So when you dream about a specific thing, it means something. For example, if you dream about you falling off a cliff, it means you are afraid of something. It means you are scared that something is going to happen. So every dream is symbolic of something. Now, dream here refers to your unconscious or your subconscious mind. Now, psychoanalysis is again structured around narratives, that is, the way a text is interpreted. And psychoanalytical approach is an interdisciplinary study because it involves psychology as well as literature. So when two disciplines come together, it is called interdisciplinary studies. So the people mostly associated with psychoanalytical approach or theory in literature are Freud, Carl Jung, and Ernest Jones. These are the three most important people associated with psychoanalytical approach and theory. Now, coming to the way our brain functions. Okay, so according to Freud, our brain has three main elements. Okay, so the first one is called id, the second one is called ego, and the third one is called superego. So let's go to the next slide first. Now, if you see under, I'm sorry. Yes. So if you see under Eid, it says, I need to eat right this second. Then when it comes to ego, it says, you can't do that because you are in the middle of an important meeting. And the superego says that eating during an important meeting is rude and inappropriate. Now, Eid is called the pleasure principle, doing something that gives you pleasure. So, right now, at this specific second, eating is the thing that is going to give me pleasure, right? Ego, that is the reality principle. What is the reality? The reality is clear that I cannot eat right now because I am in the middle of a meeting, right? This is a very important meeting and I cannot eat now. So that is your ego. That is the reality principle. Followed by which you have superego, which is called the morality principle, meaning you are very much aware of the fact that eating during a meeting is not ethically correct, is something that is not considered good manners. So your brain functions in all these three ways at the same time. First, you want to fulfill your pleasure of eating, but then you think about not eating because it's a meeting, right? You cannot eat because it's a meeting. And then you feel that eating during a meeting is something very bad and not ethically correct. So this is how our brain functions in three elements, that is id, ego, and superego. Now, sometimes why do people make a mistake? Because their superego could not be at a higher position than the pleasure principle. Okay, so there has to be a very good balance between these three elements. No element should overpower the other element. Okay. Now, coming to the text on suppressed desires, before that, I would just like to ask anyone here, do you have any questions regarding the theory or the way we are going to apply the theory to the text? Okay, I'll just proceed. So, Suppressed Desires was published in the year 1917 by Susan Glaspell in collaboration with George Crancook. And we are now going to employ a psychoanalytical approach to the play. If you see on your screen, I have provided a link. So I have used the e-text from this link, and I am mentioning it here because I have specified line numbers and page numbers. So please use this link when you are going through the PPT for any further explanation. So we have three main characters here, Henrietta Brewster and Stephen Brewster, who are husband and wife. And we have Mabel, who is Henrietta's little sister. We also have three characters who are just spoken about and they do not appear on the stage. Bob, who is Mabel's husband. We have Dr. Russell, who is the doctor to whom Henrietta always goes to. And we have Lyman Eggleston. So we have three main characters and three other characters who do not appear on stage at all. They're just being spoken about. Now, the setting I have copied just from the text because it gives you a wider view of the setting. Basically, it is describing a studio apartment in Washington Square. And when you go through the setting, the description clearly suggests that the Brewster family is belonging to the high class of the society and not to the lower class because they are up to date with all their furniture, all latest furniture, every all the setting of their house is a very lavish one, right? So we can clearly say that they belong to the upper class family. And scene one, we see that they are at the studio apartment, and we see the husband and wife, that is Henrietta and Stephen, seated at the table for breakfast. There are plates for three, but only two people are seated at the table. And when it comes to scene two, it is the same setting except that the breakfast table has been removed. So the entire play takes place in the same scene, in the same place. There is no change in place. The only difference is in scene two, the dining table has been removed. Now, before we proceed to the summary analysis and the themes of the text, it is very important for us to know certain features of a short play as they differ from a lengthy play. Now, the usual tradition of writing a drama or a play was always a five-act play. For example, let's take the most common example, that of Shakespeare's. If you see, Shakespeare's plays have five acts, right? Those are all five-act plays, and each act is further divided into scenes. So Shakespeare's plays and other plays that were mostly published, they were all full-fledged plays, lengthy plays with five acts and further scenes in them. But then in a short play, that is a one act play or a two-act play, you have just one scene or two scenes. Like in this specific play, you have just two scenes, scene one and scene two. So this idea of a one-act play goes back to the medieval age, where these one-act plays were used as curtain raisers. Now, what are curtain raisers? Before the main play being enacted, a small curtain raiser, that is a small one-act play, would be enacted. So one-act play dates back to the medieval period, even before Chaucer. Okay, so now writing a one-act play is much more difficult than writing a full-fledged five-act play because the writer has limited time, limited dialogue, limited setting, everything is limited. But in a five-act play, it can extend to around 60, 70 pages. But a one-act play goes for a maximum of 40 to 50 pages, nothing more than that. So the trouble faced by writers is they have to be very clear and crisp in the way they convey their ideas, their dialogues, their characters. Everything has to be done in a very crisp and clear manner. So the most important elements of any play are the theme, character, setting, plot, and dialogues. All these elements play an indispensable role in making a play perfect, be it a short play or a lengthy play. Now, let us just look at features of a short play. The first one being it has a single plot, means it has just one plot. It does not have any subplot. The entire play has one main plot, whereas a full-fledged five-act play will have one plot and various subplots, meaning let's say from 2 p.m. to 3 p.m., something takes place in this room. At the same time, something else is taking place in another room. So, in a full fledged play, let's say Act 1, Scene 1 is at the dining table. Act 1, Scene 2 maybe at the kitchen, but at the same time. So, you have subplots, you have different things going on everywhere at the same time. But then, in a one act play or in a short play, you do not have that. You have just one plot throughout the entire play, there is no other subplot. Action is confined to a limited place. Now, if you see the action in suppressed desires is confined to your uh, studio apartment, and especially the first act is the first scene is at the dining table, and the other scene is just around the house. So nothing takes place outside the house. Their house is the confined place for this play. The number of characters is limited. We have just three characters in this play that appear on stage. Whereas when you see full fledged five act plays, you have around nine or more characters. So, for a writer who writes short plays, he must make sure that he does not introduce too many characters, as it will become very difficult to assign equal roles to all of them. So here we have just three characters, so that the writer feels it doesn't feel it a burden to employ dialogues to all these characters. Brevity in plot, character, and dialogue. The dialogues are brief. The plot, as we saw, is also brief. And the characters, okay? We have limited characters. We do not have a lot of characters here. We have three characters who appear on stage. Uses very limited time. Now, if you see, this play does not exceed more than 7 to 8 hours, meaning when the play is enacted, it is within around 7 to 8 hours. It does not exceed that. And the dialogues, they are very crisp. Now, another difficulty is if it's a full-fledged play, a writer can use lengthy dialogues. But in a one act play, it is very, very important and rather mandatory for the writer to make sure that the dialogues are extremely short, but at the same time, they should have the fun element in it when the reader reads it. Okay, now coming to the summary of scene one, I have focused on the most important ideas. Okay, so Henrietta and Stephen are discussing about dreams, okay? And Stephen is annoyed and irritated with Henrietta's excessive inclination towards psychoanalysis. So every day, what Henrietta would do is she would wake up her husband in the middle of the night just to know what he is dreaming about. And she would want to know what he is dreaming about so that she could interpret his dreams. And Stephen is sick and tired of this routine thing of telling her his dreams every day. And now he decides not to. He does not like it when his wife does it. And then throughout the scene, rather throughout the play, we see that Henrietta is a person who is excessively inclined towards psychoanalysis. Every minute, tiny action that happens in the house, Henrietta wants to associate it with psychoanalysis. Basically, if I am doing something right now, if Henrietta were here, she would see my actions and then tell me something related to psychoanalysis that proves something about me. So, this is something that her husband did not appreciate because she had crossed the line too many times by speaking only about psychoanalysis. Now, if you read scene one, you will also see that Stephen and Henrietta, they're talking about, not Henrietta, just Stephen, who's talking about different families that were broken, that have gone apart just because of psychoanalysis. So we see that there is a conflict between Stephen and Henrietta with respect to psychoanalysis. One is crazy about it and the other one does not like it at all. So Stephen is mentioning the names of certain families who have a rift between them just because of psychoanalysis. Now, during their discussion, we see that there is a coffee mug before Stephen, and he pushes the mug away. So Stephen clearly says that there is something wrong with my stomach. But then Henrietta says, no, there is nothing wrong with your stomach. It is wrong with you. It is wrong with your unconscious mind. So this angers Stephen all the more because he is not liking it when everything around him is associated with psychoanalysis. Meanwhile, when they are discussing things, rather arguing about these things, Mabel, who is Henrietta's younger sister, she enters the stage. Now, when she enters the stage, she talks about a dream that she had. She says that I had a dream, and Henrietta is not going to leave any chance of finding out what Mabel dreamt of so that she can analyze her dream in a psychoanalytical manner. So we will see what Mabel's dream is in the next slide. So Henrietta now wants to employ a psychoanalytical approach to Mabel's dreams. And then there is a mention about Lyman Eggleston, who is an editorial writer of the time. And then we see that towards the end of scene 1, Mabel consults Dr. Russell as Henrietta had suggested. So Henrietta always visited Dr. Russell, who is the one who would tell Henrietta how to analyze a dream. So Henrietta wanted Mabel to visit that doctor, and she was hell-bent on her husband also visiting the doctor, but he never did. So we see that Henrietta's analysis makes Mabel question her married life with Bob, and Henrietta is trying to influence people to follow psychoanalysis. Now, coming to the dreams that Stephen and Mabel had. In the previous slide, we saw an argument between Stephen and Henrietta regarding a dream. And we also saw some discussion between Mabel and Henrietta about Mabel's dream. So what did they actually dream of? So there is an incident where Mabel dropped the plate by mistake. And Henrietta associates that action also with psychoanalysis. This situation takes place in page 12 of the link that I have shared. Now, Mary Snow is one of the person Stephen talks about who has rifted apart from her family. So instead of saying Mary Snow, Mabel says Mabel Snow. Okay, so she uses the wrong name. So Henrietta reestablishes psychoanalysis by saying that you replaced your name there instead of Mary Snow because just like Mary Snow, you are also not happy with your husband Bob. Okay, now let's come to the dream that Mabel had. So Mabel had a dream where she was a dry hen. Basically, she dreamt that she was a hen, right? So when Henrietta got to know that Mabel dreamt of herself as a hen, she says that you dreamt of yourself being a hen because you are having a suppressed desire for Lyman Eggleston. Now, how does she associate hen with Lyman Eggleston? She associates that with the word EGG, that is egg, the name, the prefix with which Eggleston's name begins. So, hen and egg, this is how Henrietta is interpreting Mabel's dream. Now, Stephen gives another interpretation. He says that a hen is symbolic of a maternal feeling, like a mother's feeling. So here you see both Henrietta and Stephen are differing in their interpretation of Mabel's dream. Now, we further see that Henrietta argues to validate her point of view, her argument, by saying that I'm sure Mabel is not happy with her husband. That is the reason why she doesn't eat breakfast. She makes false moves, that is, she drops the plate, she is careless with things, and she also substituted her name with another woman. She substituted her name with Mary Snow's name, and Mary Snow was a woman who was not happy with her husband. So when Mabel is associating herself with Mary Snow, it clearly indicates that just like Mary Snow, Mabel is not happy with her husband. Okay, so this is the dream that Mabel had, and these are the interpretations given by Henrietta and Stephen. And then we see that Henrietta is validating her argument, but then we have a counter argument from Mabel's side. Mabel clearly says that I dreamt about being a dry hen. But then you are talking about a wet hen. So there is definitely something wrong in your interpretation. Now, what has happened here is Mabel is in between. She is neither fully able to accept psychoanalysis, that is, go to the doctor and get the correct interpretation of her dream, neither is she totally against psychoanalysis, because she's at a point where her sister Henrietta has confused her to such an extent that she herself begins to question if I am happy with my husband or not. So, this is a big question that is left unanswered in Mabel's mind at the end of scene 1. Now, coming to scene 2, we see that Henrietta is very particular about Stephen going and consulting Dr. Russell. And we see that Stephen, for a change, has already consulted the doctor. He has been to the doctor without Henrietta's knowledge. And Stephen has also found out from Dr. Russell what is the exact interpretation of his dream. We will come to what Stephen dreamt of in the next slide. So the doctor, meanwhile, has also interpreted Mabel's dream, and everyone is shocked and surprised to know what the way the doctor has interpreted Mabel's dream. And Henrietta finds it a coincidence. Okay, whatever dream was dreamt by Mabel, and the analysis, the psychoanalysis of the dream conducted by Dr. Russell, Henrietta feels that that was just a coincidence and that does not prove anything. So we'll come to the next slide. So let's just take a look at what Stephen dreamt. So Stephen dreamt about walls receding and he being left alone in the forest. Now, Dr. Russell's interpretation of this was Stephen has a suppressed desire to be freed from his marriage. Stephen doesn't want to be with his wife anymore. So that is the reason why he had such a symbolic dream where he had this suppressed desire. Now, what is a suppressed desire? A desire that you usually have suppressed within yourself. You're not talking about it because you actually don't know totally what do you want. This is working in your unconscious and subconscious mind. So the doctor finds out that Stephen has a suppressed desire to be freed from his marriage. That is, he cannot stay with Henrietta anymore. And the confining walls in his dream, they are a symbol of his feelings about his marriage. That is, the feelings for his wife, they are all fading away. And being in a forest is symbolic of freedom, right? So basically, he wants freedom. He wants to be left alone and he does not want to live with his wife anymore. He does not want to be a part of his wife's life anymore. So this was Stephen's dream. And that is what he tells Henrietta about the interpretation of his dream by the doctor. Now, as I said, Mabel's dream, as interpreted by the doctor, left everyone awestruck, and Henrietta finds it a coincidence because, according to the doctor's interpretation of Mabel's dream, Mabel has a suppressed desire for Stephen. Yes, according to the doctor, Mabel wants the husband of her elder sister, Henrietta. Right? So that is what the doctor interpreted her dream. Now, what is the proof? What is the validation of he interpreting the dream this way? Now, Stephen's name is Stephen Brewster. Okay, so now here we see that the writer has played with the words. Step hen be rooster. Okay, hen and rooster. Okay, he's talking about that. This is how they are playing with words here. Stephen Brewster. I mean, if you separate it, if you take it part chunk by chunk, it means step hen be rooster. So the main thing here is hen be rooster. And we the doctor also said that hen is symbolic of hen in Henrietta. Okay, which means that Mabel wants to put herself in Henrietta's place, meaning Mabel wants to be Stephen's wife. I will repeat this idea again. Stephen Brewster, it has been broken down into small parts by the doctor to justify the interpretation of Mabel's dream, which means Stephen B. Rooster. And hen is symbolic of hen in Henrietta, that is the prefix to the first three letters in Henrietta's name, which means that in life, Mabel has this desire to take Henrietta's place. That is, Mabel wants to be Stephen's wife. Okay, so these are the interpretations of Stephen's dream and Mabel's dream by Dr. Russell. Now, both Stephen and Henrietta are shocked to listen to this interpretation of Mabel's dream by Dr. Russell. So, there are instances in the text where in scene one, where Henrietta says that if you as a person do not follow psychoanalysis, you are going to be sent to the insane asylum. So everyone who does not believe in psychoanalysis will be sent to the insane asylum is what is Henrietta's statements in 2 to 3 lines in scene one. So now what happens is Mabel uses that. She says that I will go along with Stephen because I do not want to go to the insane asylum. I believe in psychoanalysis. I believe in Dr. Russell's interpretation of my dream. So I choose to go with your husband Stephen because I do not want to go to the insane asylum. Now, what happens is Stephen also we see, right? What was the doctor's interpretation of Stephen's dream? That Stephen does not want to be with his wife. He wants freedom. He wants to be left free. And the confining walls are a reflection about his feelings, about his marriage, which is now fading away. So technically right now, Stephen does not want to live with Henrietta, according to the doctor's interpretation. And Mabel should live with Stephen because Mabel has a suppressed desire for Stephen. So this leaves us in a situation where Stephen and Mabel have to leave the house, or Stephen and Mabel have to live together, and Henrietta will be alone, right? So Henrietta is a little taken aback because she really loves her husband. We all know that she is too much drawn to psychoanalysis, but that didn't mean that she didn't love her husband. So she says the following things. She says that she will stop talking about psychoanalysis. She will not wake up Stephen in the middle of the night to ask him about what he dreamt of. And she will burn her journal of morbid psychology. The journal of morbid psychology is what she is reading all the time so that she can have the latest ideas on psychology. So these are the three things that Henrietta says so that Stephen doesn't leave her. Okay, so and by saying these three things, we see that Henrietta tends to contradict her own ideas. She is a person who believes thoroughly in psychoanalysis, and now she is saying that she will never talk about psychoanalysis. Why? Because if she continues to give too much importance to psychoanalysis in every small aspect in her life and in her house, she is going to lose her husband. So here we see that Henrietta is contradicting her own ideas and statements, what she had said earlier and what she is saying now. And at the end, we see that Mabel is expected to keep her desires suppressed, meaning Stephen does not leave Henrietta. Stephen and Henrietta are still together, and Mabel has no choice but to keep her desires of being with Stephen suppressed. Now, what actually has happened is Stephen and Mabel have played a game with Henrietta so that she realizes that talking too much about psychoanalysis and employing it too much in your daily life is going to threaten your own life, is going to threaten your relationship with everyone around you. So this was a small planned a game, I would say, played by Stephen and Mabel together because they wanted Henrietta to understand how she is creating a rift in her relationships with her husband as well as her sister by employing psychoanalysis in everything around her. So, if you see the text, you will see that the word you or whose love is misdirected. There are certain phrases or words in the text, basically in the dialogues delivered by these characters in italics. It means that the writer wants us to stress on that particular word or on the particular phrase because that is going to add more meaning to the sentence. So the word you, where it comes in the dialogue where Henrietta says that something is wrong with you, not your stomach, but your unconscious mind. So the word you is the most important word there, that something is wrong with Stephen mentally, not physically. Then you have the phrase whose love is misdirected in page 13. This phrase was told by Henrietta to Mabel when I think she talks about Bob, Mabel's husband. And when you see the setting of the house is in sync with the characters, they belong to the upper class. In your setting and in between, if you see, they have given a brief description of all the three characters, the way they are dressed. Mabel is dressed in a little dull way, but Henrietta is dressed in a very bright way. What does it tell you? That Henrietta and Stephen belong to the upper class of society and that they lead a lavish life. They have everything that they want in life. They are rich people. So the setting plays a very important role. Setting, plot, character, dialogues. Every element of a play is interlinked. It is very closely linked to one another, and you cannot remove even one element from a play. All the elements work together in coordination, and only then any play is perfect. Any literary text is perfect. You cannot remove even a single element from any play. So we see that initially Henrietta chooses psychoanalysis over her husband. But then later, however, there is a shift in her thought after she gets to know about the interpretation by the doctor on Mabel's dreams. And Henrietta is willing to leave psychoanalysis because of the fear of losing her husband. And she does not want to lose her husband to her sister Mabel. So we can also say that this focuses on, or this hints at, the possibility that society has something called gender roles. Okay, so this can be a separate study altogether about gender roles, where you can talk about men are superior to women, or at the end men find a way to overpower women, etc. We will not be discussing that further here. That will be another concept that you can employ to this text. So these are certain ideas that we derive from a thorough reading of this text. We can also see that Henrietta always over analyzes every situation. It is important to analyze every situation, but over analyzing any situation is never good. Too much of anything is never good, and that is what happens to Henrietta. So Mabel and Stephen are employing psychoanalysis as a weapon against Henrietta. So now you can see the role of this victim and victimizer. Initially, who was the
Victimizer was Henrietta. What was Henrietta's weapon? Henrietta's weapon was psychoanalysis. With the use of psychoanalysis, she would make everyone dance to her tunes. She would make everyone believe in psychoanalysis. But now what has happened is the victimizer has become the victim of the same weapon that she had used. So now Mabel and Stephen, who never liked psychoanalysis, are using psychoanalysis as a weapon against Henrietta, who always believes in the existence of psychoanalysis. Now, we also see some features of a dark comedy or a humor in this, as it suggests this is a Freudian comedy. Now, this is what I was talking about. There are a few quotes from the text that highlight a psychoanalytical approach. Now, you can't say that the entire text has a psychoanalytical approach. No. There are few instances in text, there are few words or themes in the text which make you look at a text from a specific direction. There can be other approaches to the text as well. So now when you have to validate, why is this text, why can you see this text, or how can you see this text with reference to a psychoanalytical approach, these quotes, these statements, dialogues from the text will help you validate that. So the first one being, there's something the matter with you, right? There's something wrong with Stephen mentally and not physically. The trouble is not with your stomach, but in your subconscious mind. Throughout the PPT, I have highlighted some important words and phrases associated with psychoanalysis. This very irritability indicates that you're suffering from some suppressed desire. So you have subconscious mind, suppressed desire, unconscious mind, insane asylum. Again, you have ideas about dreams, and you have wish fulfillment. Now, wish fulfillment is nothing but you imagine something. Now, let's say, for example, I want to be the Prime Minister of India. Is it possible? No, it is not possible. So what do? I think about it. I imagine few things, that if I were a Prime Minister, I would do this. If I were a Prime Minister, I would have such luxuries. So what is that? That is nothing but wish fulfillment. You are fulfilling your wishes in your mind through your dreams, etc. So the idea of wish fulfillment, subconscious mind, suppressed desires, insane asylum, dreams, etc. are all words associated with psychology, psychoanalysis. Now, I would like to draw your attention to the fourth quote here, which is by Henrietta, and this is addressed to Mabel. Now, if you carefully read it, I want you to read the first line, which is, the first line which says, you want something, you think you can't have it, you think it is wrong. Please keep these three sentences in mind as I'm going to go to a previous slide. You want something, you think you can't have it, you think it is wrong. So you want something refers to Eid, your pleasure principle, right? Eid is your pleasure principle. You want something. Right. I need to eat right now. So basically, let's substitute that with I want something now. Then the second one, the ego, refers to I cannot have that right now. That is your reality principle. You are realizing the reality that no, I possibly cannot get that now. So Eid is I want to be the prime minister. Ego means I know that I am aware of the reality. I'm aware of the fact that I cannot be the prime minister. And then super ego refers to I feel that it is wrong for me to think that I want to become the prime minister. So this fourth quote clearly talks about the three elements of your brain, that is id, ego, and superego. Now, we saw this text only from a psychoanalytical approach. You can also focus on this text through the following themes, that is dysfunctional family, a place where the families do not live together in harmony. Okay, there is always a conflict between the husband and the wife. Why? Because of psychoanalysis. Searching for meaning in one's life, self-definition. That means, who am I? What am I? What am I born to do? What should I do? How to live, etc. Feminist theories between the couple. Okay, how feminism plays an important role in this text. Now you can talk about, in that case, you will have to focus on how here the woman Henrietta's character is stronger than that of Stephen's character. So keeping that in mind, you can employ feminist theories to the same text. Monogamy, right? Now the concept of monogamy comes from this statement where Mabel has to go along with Stephen, and currently Stephen is married to Henrietta. So that brings in the concept or theme of monogamy. And also gender roles according to society. As a woman, what does society expect you to do? As a man, what does society expect out of you? So the role of a man and a woman in society is different. So there is a clash between the individual and the society. I might feel that it is right for me to be the head of the family. But then, according to the society, the male member of the family is always the head of the society. So gender roles according to society can be another theme when you look at this specific text. Now, coming to the idea of dark humor in the text. So Freud's theory of humor says that the superego allows the ego to generate humor. Now, superego is your morality principle. So the morality principle will allow the reality principle to generate humor. And you have certain features of dark humor plays or texts. Comic elements in the dialogues delivered. Now, a good example of this will be playing with words, Henrietta or Stephen B. Rooster, right? So playing up with words in a very comic way, that is comic elements in the dialogues delivered, clever way of playing with words, intense drama to laugh out loud humor. In the sense, some dialogues are so funny. Now, if you see it from a psychoanalytical approach, you might feel that the character is disturbed. But then there is also a dark comedy, something which is actually serious, but the readers laugh as well. So this is a very important feature of a dark humor or a dark comedy. Tool for provoking vulgar issues by creating discomfort, create serious thought and amusement for the audience. So now, as an audience, when you read these texts, you will think about certain ideas, certain dialogues. At the same time, you will find it funny as well. So the perfect mixture, the perfect amalgamation of thought and laughter is what you find in dark humor. And it forms the core component of the text. Throughout this text, you will see that dark humor is at the highest position. That is kind of the central idea of the text. And if you see dark humor, it is addressed through certain themes. like racism, sexism, war, violence, death, crime, poverty, terrorism, suicide, etc. So dark humor is nothing but the perfect thing when you have to think but you also laugh at a situation. For example, how did the text begin? Right? It began in a very intense way, a critical way, where you thought that the wife and husband are going to separate because of psychoanalysis. What happens at the end? The audience laughs. The audience laugh because Henrietta doesn't know that Mabel and Stephen have played a game with her, so that she realizes what it is to be talking about psychoanalysis the entire day and how it is going to affect her life. Rather, it has already affected her life. So there is this transition from intense to laughter at the end. So these are certain features of dark humor which we see throughout the play Suppressed Desires. Now, talking about the conclusion of this text, we can say that interdisciplinary studies play a very important role when it comes to readers. Now, theories were formulated in such a way that the reader is free to employ any theory that he wants to. So, when it comes to interdisciplinary studies, that is mixing two disciplines together, two or more disciplines together, the reader is at the center of the text, meaning the reader has the freedom to interpret the text the way we want. For example, let's say we are a group of people, okay? I do not write psychoanalytical approach because we already discussed about that. So you can argue that this text has the concept of dysfunctional family more than psychoanalysis. It is not wrong. One text can have many perspectives. The only thing is you have to validate it by providing exact incidents or words from the text that will support your argument that it talks about dysfunctional family. So the good thing about interdisciplinary studies is multiple interpretations for the same text is possible, and there is no one correct answer. Many answers are correct, rather all answers are correct if you are able to prove it correct. Now, how will you prove it correct? By quoting or by talking about situations from the text that support your topic. Perfect amalgamation of dramatic elements. Now, if you see this text, there is a perfect balance in everything, a perfect balance in the length of the play, the setting, the dialogues, the plot, the character. So basically, the second conclusion is about using the elements of drama correctly and aptly and justifying it. Now, we can say that theory comes before it has been given a name. Now, for example, we are naming a theory today. What does it mean? That it has already been practiced for some times without a name. A theory is nothing but interpretation of something. Now, when I validate this interpretation in a specific method, we can call it a theory. So the name of a theory comes much after the theory has been practiced. So these are certain conclusions that we can draw from this text. So that is all from my side with respect to the text. Now, if anyone has a question or a doubt, I'm open to answering all of them.
Yeah, there are a few questions that is there in the chat. Shall I read it out? Namrata, shall I read it out? There are two questions in the chat. Hello. Wait. Achyuta,
Okay, so
he
Vibha
asks,
has asked a question saying that psychoanalysis doesn't say you have to gratify every suppressed desire. This statement is expressed at the end of the play and isn't clearly emphasized throughout the play. So is it not given more importance in the play? Okay, Vibha, this is a nice question. It clearly indicates that you have really listened to what I have said. So now you first have to see the change in the character of Henrietta. How was she initially? Always talking about psychoanalysis, right? Now, there is a change in her mindset because she is fearing that she is going to lose her husband if she is too much for psychoanalysis. And we all know that emphasizing too much on something is really bad, and it is always going to lead to destruction. So we can say that maybe Henrietta realized that too much of importance being given to psychoanalysis is driving her husband away from her. Rather, at that point, her husband was driven away from her. Now, your question about this isn't clearly emphasized throughout the play, so is it not given more importance in the play? No, Vibha, the point is that theories are important, psychoanalysis is important, but then using it too much and just blindly on anything and everything around is not the right thing to do. And this statement that you have to gratify every suppressed desire, you don't have to gratify every suppressed desire, that is said by Henrietta when she is wild at Mabel for having a suppressed desire for her husband. So how do you think she is going to validate her point? She has only one thing to say, that let's not give too much importance to psychoanalysis. You need not gratify every suppressed desire. Let this suppressed desire go, right? So her point here is psychoanalysis was always her weapon. Now psychoanalysis is a weapon turning against Henrietta, and she is not able to accept the fact that it is going to take away her husband from her. So that is why she's making the statement that you need not gratify every suppressed desire. And this was addressed to Mabel, who has a suppressed desire for Stephen. Vibha, did I answer your question?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Yeah, I think Achyuta has one question.
Okay. Anyone else has any other questions?
Achyuta from second BCom D. He's asking, can you explain the aspects of Freudian theories again? You can't hear me.
So yes, David, that's all from my side.
You can't hear me. I think she can't hear. Okay, go ahead.
Am I audible? Yes, David, that's all from my side.
Good morning to one and all present here. I thank Ms. Namrata Mohan for enlightening our students with a talk about psychoanalysis and a detailed interpretation. I extend my gratitude to Dr. S. Anil Kumar Sir, Principal SSMRV Degree College, for providing an opportunity to conduct this webinar. Dr. M.S. Nagraj Sir, HOD Department of Commerce, Professor Ume Salma Ma'am, Coordinator, Second Year BCom, Professor Shivkumar N. Sir, Program Coordinator, Dr. Beena M., HOD Department of English. And I thank all the faculties and students for being a part of today's program. Have a great day. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
Thank you, Smita ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, Namrata.
Yeah, thank you, David.